The Shield Seidler post on Instagram I saw this morning, and I, as of the time of this recording, have not responded. And it's something that I've thought about for several hours since we're recording. It's just about 10 o'clock, I think. It's something that I've been thinking about for a while because I became aware of it very early. And I'm not trying to make this more complicated. It could be as simple as an emoji coming up later, a heart emoji, something like that.
Sure.
But I do plan to respond, but I feel very humbled to have even been named in that post. And you mentioned the proper context, which is this is the 2-year anniversary of Peter's passing. Okay. So that happened 2 years ago today. And I think that what we're seeing has less to do with current circumstances, but more to do with it has been 2 years since Sheil Seidler lost her partner, lost her husband. And we can talk all day about the context of, well, she's got this lawsuit against them, and that might be holding the Padres back, or they're going to try to force her out. And we know some of the dirty details that have gone on in this family drama in this civil war between Sheil and Peter's immediate family. But I do think sometimes this is probably a widow who is continuing to grieve for somebody who very much was a soulmate and somebody who they were incredibly connected. I don't know, John, if you took the time to look up Psalm 18:48, because that was included in her post as well. It might give you a little bit of a glimpse into the deep connection with Peter and Sheil. That might give you a little bit of a glimpse into the current. I don't know. I don't know how exactly. I took that more to do with her partnership with Peter, her marriage to Peter, her love for Peter. There's been a lot of videos. It makes me, it's very bittersweet to see some of these videos that she is posting of Peter with their kids, of Peter with the family dogs, of Peter sending her these private videos. It is very bittersweet to see that because you are reminded of Peter Seidler, the Padre owner. But I think also we are watching a widow, continue to grieve the loss of her husband. And, I do mostly view it through that lens. Not the messaging has anything to do
Right.
with John Seidler, the brother Seidler, the potential sale. I think that the timing sucks because this is, again, 2 years to the day. I mean, just about to the minute, honestly, as we're recording this. I remember exactly where I was. I was driving to work, and it must have been right about 10 o'clock. I was sitting on the corner of Arrow Drive and Granite Ridge Road. A lot's changed in 2 years, but I would just think my guess is that this is mostly about the passing of her husband and her partner. And I could tell you just a little bit because she has told me this personally, that listening to the radio, listening to Ben and Woods, listening to our show, me and Marty, John Quintera's show, she told me directly, those of us that had a relationship with Peter, personal relationship with Peter, and you didn't need to have any personal connection. You didn't need to text with Peter to really be fond of the person, right? He was named the San Diego Union Tribune Person of the Year in 2022. And it wasn't just because they traded for Juan Soto. It was because of everything else that Peter Seidler was involved with, from being a great humanitarian and philanthropist, and also, by the way, restoring a little bit of pride into our sports culture. But Sheil told me that they would go and they would listen to the radio shows. Maybe not in real time, maybe not the day of, but it was a good solid week of mourning Peter Seidler's passing. And Sheil told me that it helped their children understand who their father was and how he was viewed, because they are young. They are young, and they would listen to people saying the things that they were saying about Peter. And it was helpful in healing and making them understand that they shared their dad beyond the family, that they shared their dad with so many thousands of people. And Sheil told me that directly. So I have a sense that that's kind of what it's about. It's not about these people are on my side, or you could interpret all that stuff, especially when we're talking about litigation. Every time I see a picture of Sheil and AJ, I'm like, oh, they're going to get put into some courtroom. But I would say it's just much more to do with it being a really, really hard date for a human being. We forget these are humans. And, I understand people just, hey, man, like I got my own family drama going on here. Do I really need to be living somebody else's family drama? I'm just a baseball fan. I just want what's in the best interest of I don't agree, but I can understand somebody taking that approach. But I really do think this is just about her. And as she said, I think listening to Ben and Woods, not just for her, but for her kids, for her family, listening to what it was that we did on our show, because we said this is our priority. And obviously I wouldn't have any exposure to John Quintero's show since we were on, I think, at the same time. But that, and it makes you feel good if it helped their kids grieve and help their kids understand exactly who their father was in real time, why they're probably really missing their dad and having a difficult time processing that he's not going to be around anymore.
It's funny you say that. First of all, very well said. But it's funny you say that because I was wondering this morning, I was like, it's the anniversary of Peter's passing. And all of a sudden I just felt this like sense of, I didn't know Peter. You knew Peter a little bit. I met him maybe once as he was walking through the mighty 1090 offices and had maybe a quick word before he got, escorted right into the studio. But like he wouldn't have known me. I don't even think I told him my name. And I was like, man, it's got to be hard to live in this city where everyone kind of, I'm not going to say everyone feels like they know Peter. Everyone has an opinion of Peter. And they don't know, who he is when he's making his coffee in the morning. They don't know who he is when he doesn't get a good night of sleep. They don't know what he likes when he's not feeling well, right? Like the little personality things that your family knows about you, but the rest of the world doesn't. No one knows, like, we don't know his favorite place to go on vacation and what he likes to do there, right? And I was like, it's got to be so frustrating to just have people come up to you and be like, here's my opinion of your husband who passed. And they don't know him. And I was like, I that's got to be frustrating. And so I was already thinking that, but you're saying it's kind of the opposite. Like other people talking about what Peter meant to them and what Peter means to Padre fans and what Peter means to San Diegans. Like he's done so much for the homeless community downtown. For that to lay out for his kids, this is who your father was. And this is why he's important beyond the walls of this house. That's cool. That's cool. And I could see that you feel a little like enlightened by the fact that you helped them, kind of get there and you were helpful and not invading the space of the family, but helping the family to learn about his impact and everything. So yeah, just funny because that was literally a thought I had this morning of like, this must be so annoying for her. And no, apparently not.
Yeah, and I mean, we didn't do it with that intent. It wasn't our intent, but there's just been a handful of times where you learn about this sort of stuff after the fact. Kevin Towers passed away right after Lee and I got married. And why it's important, why that timeline is important is Kevin Towers' best friend is a guy named Barry Axelrod, who was our wedding officiant. And we were still in Mexico in Puerto Vallarta, and they got the news that KT had passed away. Ugh. And I think by that point, KT or Barry and Phil Nevin, who was at the wedding, they had gone back already. But, there was going to be the celebration of life. And when I got back from our honeymoon, of course, this is something I wanted to talk about. And I can remember being told that Kelly Towers, Kevin's widow, would listen to some of the stuff that we would say, whether it was an interview with Fred Ullman Jr. or whomever about KT. And you don't do it because it's not an audience of one. You're doing it because you think it matters to the most people. That's always the goal in radio and podcasting, is not to shrink the audience down, that you're doing it for an audience of one. You're trying to do it for as many people as possible. Maybe here's a little bit of context that you didn't know about this person, or here's a little bit of depth or range that you might not have known about this person, et cetera. And like I will say, like we were not doing that for the benefit of Peter Seidler's children. We were doing that just because we thought San Diegans, were grieving because this is an owner that they really connected with. And John, you just said, I've never met him, I didn't know him, but you did know him. I mean, there's a reason why we're talking about him 2 years later, because everybody knew Peter. Whether you personally were connected to him or not, everybody knew Peter Seidler. You knew what his vision was. You knew, like, he's the guy. When you talk about legacy, you talk about somebody. People wear brown in this town. They wear brown all the time because it was Peter's vision. He said, I want to be looking up into these stands one day and I want to see a sea of brown. I want to see everybody just dressed in brown. And goddamn, if that didn't happen exactly the way that Peter imagined it would, in the way that Peter desired it. So, that's you were connected to him because, again, and it's not to say he was perfect. Nobody bats 1,000. They took some big swings and they've missed on some. But you always felt like we were in pretty good shape as long as Peter was at the wheel.